Oh, we're on YouTube.
All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the November 26th, 2024 regular council meeting for the Village of Lytton. I'd like to take a moment to remind everyone to please turn off your videos, mute your microphones, and allow council to begin the proceedings. Just to let you know, we're all being recorded and broadcasted on the Village of Lytton YouTube channel. If anyone is looking for a video recording of this meeting or a past meeting, you can go to the Village YouTube channel and watch it there. Thank you, Your Worship. You may call the meeting to order.
Thank you. I call this meeting to order at 7 o'clock. I want to begin by recognizing that we're meeting here in the parish hall in the village of Lytton, which is located in the territory of the Entrecatan people. This evening here at council table, we have all of council, nobody on Zoom as well. We have CAO Mombercat joining us in person this evening. We will begin. We need a motion to adopt tonight's agenda.
So move Lightfoot.
Thank you. A seconder.
Toss.
Thank you. All those in favor? Carried. We now need a motion to adopt the minutes of the November 5th meeting.
Also move.
Thank you. A seconder.
I'll second.
Thank you. Any errors or omissions? Seeing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Carried. We will move right on to delegations. And this evening, we're pleased to have Sarah, Angela, and Arlene join us from Stormy Lake Consulting and regarding our draft tourism economic development plan. So welcome, ladies, and I will turn it over to you.
Okay, thank you. Nice to see everybody. I'm Sarah. I do project management and strategy with Stormy Lake. We've got Arlene on our team here today, and as well as Angela, who I don't believe anyone on council had met yet, but Arlene was with us during our community visit. But welcome to both. I imagine just to save time, I'll dive right in. So how about I share my screen? And what we're going to share with you today is, our plan that we've outlined at a high level. Some of the key things, largely a summary. I won't go too into detail about the specific strategies to get where we need to, but you will get a great idea of, what this is and how we've put it together and where it will take us. And so just a reminder that the objective of the project was to, explore tourism opportunities and create a roadmap to foster economic growth through that, while really aligning with the community values, vision, and capacity, certainly. And so really this is also aiming to support Lytton's long-term recovery, leveraging natural assets, location, resources to develop what would be a sustainable tourism industry. What we're going to do is share a recommendation right off the bat. So you can have this in your mind while we're going through the plan. Our recommendation is to have Lytton be the complete rest stop along Highway 1. And we're focused on building that solid tourism foundation before we move into being a full destination, and while ensuring that the community needs and values remain at the forefront of that. This is something that is largely meant to be a journey. You can't really flick a switch, and we don't want to turn into a destination when we need to do a lot of the work to make sure we have the foundations to be one, and make sure we do that really well first. There was quite a bit of background work that went into making this recommendation. Of course, conducted our own in-depth research, which included a potential visitor assessment based on some data we were able to get about visitors today and in the past. We did a bunch of one-on-one interviews to speak with local community members and operators and industry partners and regional partners. We visited the community and were able to meet with mayor and council and the chamber, some local businesses, and including coaching, of course, which is where we stayed. And we're able to do some consultations with Lytton First Nation Economic Development, as well as go down to visit Siska. After that, we're also able to join a council meeting with Kanaka Bar. From all this came a current state assessment that we reviewed partway through the project to start knowing where these strategic directions would be. And then the kind of second half of all this work was the economic analysis to really understand what are the investments we need to make and what would be the economic impact of this. Just very quickly, there is a more fulsome report of what we're calling a SCOT analysis, also known as a SWOT analysis, to understand the strengths and challenges and opportunities and threats that we're looking at again to guide our direction into why we make this recommendation. And largely the location and the natural assets of Lytton were some of the bigger strengths that we were able to focus on. And, that means location in more than one way. It really is about your location in terms of how you're proximate to major, other tourism places and cities, but also in terms of the confluence and the setting of the place and the history of the place, the climate of the place, and all of these great things. We know more of our major challenges, of course, the infrastructure and capacity as being the major kind of barriers to development or quick development today. And that's, just kind of some basic things that we'll touch on a little later. What we like to do with these, and these again are just kind of the highlight titles. Under each of these points in the full assessment, there are more specifics as to what exactly we mean. But we like to do a more in-depth analysis of what the whole SCOT analysis gave us. And essentially what we gathered from looking at all these major points was that we did need to create something that Lytton would benefit from as a phased approach, making sure that we're leveraging the location. We know the main development levers for tourism are missing. We're going to require, a lot of collaboration and a lot of dialogue. We heard a lot about the narrative of Lytton today and how can we start changing that as we want to build towards success and something that's realistic. And so really making sure leaning into our partnerships, our existing assets, our existing tourism assets and social ones, including events, and really recognizing that Lytton, we are not doing this alone as a village. You're stronger as that regional hub than as a specific place. And so we come to the idea of the Lytton total rest stop. And what we see is that you've got, people going by today. And so certainly you'll have visitors who are stopping and not staying. But when they stop, this is what their experience can be. Something that will have them stay longer, spend money in the destination. And all of this is certainly doable. We really wanted to align with what's being developed today and then add a bit to that to make the visitor experience something unique. They can come and they can enjoy the museums that are there and that are being built, and they can learn about legacy of the place. They can engage with local culture. They can purchase local things. They can really get a good view, go to that iconic viewpoint in town and look down the canyon and look at the confluence and learn about how it's a special place and a spiritual place. And all of this, of course, while they can stop and get their groceries and gas and charge their car. And things like that, stretch their legs. In picturing this, without having renderings for you, we're really leveraging what is the park area now and developing that along with the hub that's being built and where we're going to have food trucks and leveraging the farmers market, all to tie together as an integrated experience. And so you'll see some of that coming through as you get the full document and you can read the strategies in that. But ideally, it's, you have wayfinding signage to guide people through the town. They can stop at the grocery store and grab, they can grab a coffee, they can grab some food and walk from the hub area down the road to the park. And then in, future, when there's the washroom, with some washrooms there, we can tie it into where the Spintler Memorial Park would be. We'll do some upgrades to the park itself to make sure that visitors have interpretive signage to read about the history and the culture and the people in the place and read about the other businesses in town and about the community and its own history. And of course, there's a water fountain there and potentially a misting station because it's hot. I won't read all of this, but certainly wanted to just point out a slide that kind of gives a bit of a comparison between the two development approaches and why we would be going for what's a total rest stop today as opposed to building a destination. And of course, as we mentioned, this approach is the feasible approach, especially given current resources and capacity that we really need to consider. It's something gradual and it will allow us to scale up over time. Focusing on the being a destination would really require a lot of investment in infrastructure and other things that are not, don't make sense at the moment and would really just kind of strain the destination and its resources as they exist and jump the gun on a lot of things that need to come into play, such as stronger relationships, not only in tourism, but regionally and locally to make sure you're aligned and have the partnerships required to begin building. What we did as part of this plan as well was make sure that we had a 10-year vision, even though what we're going to have in the plan is a 3-year. But we want to make sure that as we're working towards becoming the total rest stop, we're not actually losing sight of what's possible. And so we put together a 10-year vision rooted in everything that we've heard from our conversations with community members and with your regional neighbors, of what's possible and what people would envision Lytton to be as a tourism destination in the future. So a lot of this will talk about how it's for community as much as it is for the visitors. This needs to be something that as we grow, we're thinking about the people who live here as much as we are the people who come here to visit and enjoy the place. And how can we share with each other our rich history, our culture, growing as that regional hub that will seamlessly blend practical amenities with culture and history, and of course, our beautiful natural attractions. Whoops, sorry, I'm opening the chat. And so we come to our 3-year implementation plan that we've broken down into each year has strategies based around infrastructure development, marketing, and relationship building. So those are kind of the 3 key levers that we've broken down strategies in under years 1, 2, and 3. And largely what we've done is have year 1 as laying all the foundation. So making sure we have the zoning in place to get the key infrastructure we need. Things such as the grocery store and the EV charging stations, establishing also the partnerships that we need, especially with the Lytton First Nation. We know in our conversations that tourism is not quite their focus yet, but where are the other development efforts and other areas we can align and start to strengthen those relationships? Early marketing efforts, of course, to really start promoting, what is Lytton doing? Who are the tourism partners we can lean on to get the word out and establish that short-term positioning as the total rest stop. Year 2 looks at enhancing the existing amenities so we can activate the community hub, put in those park amenities like the washrooms and a fountain and some nice gardens and pathways, as well as expand on what we're offering in terms of food, so food truck services and who are the vendors that we can get to participate in that, as well as other community members in the local farmers market. Some deeper engagement is a general term, but really with our regional partners, looking at how we're working together, especially in terms of tourism, when we're thinking a little further ahead and building relationships for regional packages, and how else can we expand our marketing campaigns. This is quite general, like I said, in the full plan. We've got some really interesting specifics about how you can do these things well that, again, are sequenced in order to make sense with all the other work. And then finally, year 3 would be the full activation. We have everything up and running and everything's operational and finished, and we can really start to call ourselves that full total rest stop. We have enhanced park features if they're there. We have the partnerships in place. We'll continue promoting tourism and really being able to increase visitor traffic now that we're building a reputation, now that we're building, actually able to get some feedback from community and how they see this going, and feedback from visitors and how we can meet their needs. Just very quickly, our 3-year implementation plan has also just been turned into a visual. So and this is in the full plan as well. So we can start to look at, in terms of development, where do we focus in years 1, 2, and 3? Everything has kind of been sequenced based on where we know you are with development today, with things like that are coming, like EV charging stations and the cafe. the, stalls for food, stalls for the farmers market and other things like that, as well as the new things that you'd like to see integrated to make it that seamless, vibrant experience. And then the same thing with marketing. What are we doing logically in years 1, 2, and 3, focusing our efforts, especially as we build the relationships we need? How do we go deeper into those? Who are we having to help us promote the place and find funding opportunities to support it all? And then finally, same thing with relationships and partnerships. Where are we focusing over the 3 years? And there's probably a little more overlap here as you continue, whatever you start in year 1 will probably actually continue to year 3. But again, these are quite logical, or supposed to be, in their outlay. I'll leave it there for now. I'm going to pass it over to Angela, who can start sharing with us some of the economic analysis elements as we looked at what does this mean on paper.
Thanks, Sarah, and honored to be here today speaking to all of you. So we just talked about the developmental plan, the 3-year plan. What does that look like from an investment point of view, and what are the returns? So what we did was we started off with what is absolutely critical. What are the critical foundations to have a total rest stop experience? And so we prioritized all the things that we heard from the community into need to have and nice to have. And I'll talk about the need to have because that's so important in going forward. One is the wayfinding signage, highway signs to drive visitors into Lytton. Also wayfinding signage within the community itself. The grocery store, which is already in development, that's a huge economic boost. A coffee shop as well. Food trucks, along with a market. And the market is very inexpensive to start because it's a $60,000 outlay for the stalls. And then there's the EV charging station. Again, that will drive visitors. Those who charge will be able to stay in the community for longer and therefore take advantage of the total rest stop amenities. Also, there are grants available for EV charging stations, so it may not require a significant outlay for the village. Expanded farmers market, again, celebrating the local produce, also local activities, artifacts, and art. And then there's the park, which Sarah alluded to. Washroom is very important, having a water fountain, and that could all be tied to the hub area. And then, a park and a misting station. And again, that'll be fully integrated as a total rest stop. So next slide, please. Yeah, and so what are the critical success factors? Well, when we took a look at where all these pieces are located, and the great thing is that they are so close to each other, people can walk from one place to another, and the community hub that'll be developed, as well as the 2 parks and the grocery store will integrate all the experiences. And so what is critical? Ample parking is critical. So ideally, we'd want to have parking near the washrooms, the market, food trucks, and the park. The grocery and the gas station will be an integral part. The grocery store is well underway. And then the spending boost is going to come from not only the grocery store and the coffee shop and the community hub, but really the accommodations. For example, once the existing hotel housing is converted to a full hotel, even at $50,000 a room for reno, that's going to result in significant economic benefits. And so I'll just turn to some of the benefits. Next slide, please. So we did a lot of comparators. We did the economic number crunching. We looked at economic multipliers. We looked at the experiences and the economic outcomes from other similar projects. And what we found was if you have a grocery store, coffee shop, farmer's market of 15 stalls, some food trucks, maybe up to 4, and some accommodations. And really, this is just the conversion of the existing accommodations to, full-fledged hotel. You're going to get about $5.8 million in annual economic impact per year. And so just a small investment. And the good thing is that a lot of this is underway. The grocery store, that's already underway. The coffee shop, the permits certainly have been received. The farmers market is already somewhat in existence, so it's adding more stalls. And then once the hub is constructed, there'll be more of a home for the market and accommodations. And so if you're looking at $4 million investment, and this is not from the city of Lytton, the village of Lytton, it's from like everybody in Lytton. You're going to get that big return of 5.8 million a year, which is 29 million over 5 years. And then, so what does that mean from the village of Lytton? So we sort of calculated what might need investment. Wayfinding signs, as I mentioned, and again, all of this is laid out in the report. So there's a page covering each one of these economic items, so you can go and see, what the assumptions are that we made. So wayfinding signs, about 110,000 investment. Park of 120,000. Covered interpretive signs. Celebrating the culture, the history of Lytton and where it's heading. Landscaping, some EV charging stations, some food trucks, and maybe some subsidies for the food trucks as they get established. And then if you add that all up, $700,000 investment, and that's going to give you, 28 million, 29 million over 5 years. So I will stop at that. And then, sorry, the other key message is, you're already well underway. So you've got momentum going with the construction already, or the start of the grocery store and some of the market pieces that are in place. So I will stop there and turn it back to the chair, and Sarah and I are happy to take any questions. Thank you.
Thank you for that. I will turn it to council to see who has any questions or comments. Councillor Toss?
How'd you know? I didn't. Yeah. I was curious about, I'm not sure if I heard it wrong, the 60,000 for market stalls. Was it 60,000 or 600 per stall? And are those ostensibly in the hub?
Yeah, sorry. It is 600 per stall. And so, yes, sorry about that. Yeah, it's about
so
600 per stall.
Sure. Was that meant to be built into the hub? Is that where you're picturing this? Or like, what is that stall? Like, I'm not really sure what you mean by a stall, because there typically are farmers market vendors bring their own tents.
Yeah, so that would really be just the farmers market bringing their own tents, and then I believe that the budget for the more permanent market hub is built into the community hub itself. But yes, it's $600 to set up a stall, and that is really the vendor.
Thank you. Councillor McCann?
When you said to enhance existing accommodation, you really had me lost because I am really unfamiliar with existing accommodation that's available to be enhanced. Like, where did that come from?
Oh, so from what I understand, from our information gathering, this is the existing structure that is accommodating workers, construction workers that
Oh,
are
okay.
working on the sites rebuilding. We're thinking that eventually that would be returned to a
Right.
hotel structure.
So the camp may become a hotel. That's what you're saying. Okay,
The workers' camp at the airport?
yeah.
Is that what you meant,
No,
Angela?
No, the pines.
It's the pines.
Oh, we're talking about
The pines.
Oh, I was talking
And
about
it's
workers'
talking
camp.
about an investment into the pines.
Yeah.
Oh.
To make it kind of a true tourist accommodation.
And that ostensibly,
That's what you meant. Okay.
So the investment-
It's kind of a bit of a stretch, but okay.
yeah. So the investment in the Pines Motel would then be from the owners?
Yes.
So as a council, how do you suggest we encourage the owners to come up with 600 grand or whatever the number there was?
So
I think we would look at the-
there might be
the
grants
allowance.
available.
Okay.
Yeah.
I
So
see.
there-
Oops, sorry.
I
I will
think-
stop.
Yeah,
Sure,
this
for a
this
second.
report, if I get it right, is very high level, as you mentioned. It's suggestive, some recommendations, that, and then when we get the final report, we'll be able to dive into it a little deeper.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
There, and the final report is available now. So you can read that as soon as we're, finished here. I can have the most up-to-date version, make sure Diane has that to share. That is in there. And as I understand, and maybe Diane can speak to this a little more, we do suggest certain areas of funding to support, but of course there's what I understand is to be a part 2 of this, where there will be someone to help actually implement the plan, which includes finding some avenues with partnerships and funding to actually bring this to life.
And just to add that the accommodation is more beyond that 3-year strategy. So the 3-year strategy was focusing on the rest stop and all of the components there. That is more of the next stage when you become a destination. You obviously need some overnight accommodation, but the first 3 years doesn't take the accommodation is not a critical point there.
Mm-hmm. We had just understood that maybe sooner than we thought or sooner than later, some accommodation might become available for any visitors who did want to stay. But largely, I would say that's like Arlene said, beyond the core 3-year of developing their total rest stop.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you. Are there any other questions or comments? No, I really want to thank you. I know how much you put into the research that you did, the time you spent in Lytton here, talking to people and experiencing Lytton yourself. And I think we all really appreciate that. And of course, coming up with the report for us. So I really want to thank you very much for the work you've done. And we'll probably be back with you, with more questions as we get to the report.
Absolutely.
Yes. Okay, thank you so much.
All right.
Great.
Thank you, everybody.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we're going to move on to item number 7, which is, I apologize. We have a recommended motion I'll make that motion to accept the report. Thank you, Councillor Lightfoot, seconder. Thank you, Councillor McCann. All those in favor? Carried. Okay, we'll move on to item number 7 now. Public comment, and I'm going to turn it back over to Lisa Storchenko.
Thank you, Your Worship. So members of the public are now invited to comment on matters related to the agenda. If you would like to speak, please use the raise hand function on Zoom. You can find that by clicking on React at the bottom of your screen and then click raise hand. When it's your turn, I'll read your name and you'll be asked to unmute yourself. You'll get a pop-up on your screen asking you to unmute, and you'll have 2 minutes to speak. Speakers are asked to please state and spell your name, say your address, and the agenda item number that you're speaking to. So if anyone would like to speak, please use the raise hand function now. I'm not seeing anyone, so I'll call for a second time. If anyone would like to speak, please use the raise hand function now. And your worship, is there anyone at Parish Hall that wishes to speak?
I don't believe so, no.
All right, thank you. So that completes the public comment portion of the meeting. So back to you, your worship.
Thank you. We will move on to item number 8, which is staff reports and presentations. And we have CAO Marquette here, item number 8.1.1.
Thank you very much, Mayor O'Connor. Good evening, everyone. And everyone who's joined us online. This first item is a report to you. Very programs that we have been offering as the village, which are about to expire at the end of December, and a recommendation to extend them to June. So we have 3 grant programs that the village provides to residents who are rebuilding. All of the grants have sort of the same overarching requirement, which is they're available to property owners who are rebuilding a property in the village of Lytton that was that they owned on June 30th, 2021, and was lost in the fire. So the 3 different programs that we have underway is we have a building permit reduction program where we're offering 50% reduction in building permit fees associated with new home applications, building permit applications. We also, on that program's been in place the longest. We've had that in place, excuse me, since November of 2023. And so far we have reduced building permit fees by $64,200 under that program. The second program would be our archaeology grant program. And so that one has been in place since January of 2024, and that was for up to $5,000 towards archaeology costs that are incurred. And then the third program is the tree reimbursement program. So this was put in place back in the spring, and it just encouraged people to plant trees on their property. We're offering a reimbursement of up to $100 for trees planted. So those are the 3 programs that we're looking to extend until June the 30th of 2025.
Good, thank you. So we have a recommended motion that includes all 3 of those grants in one motion. Who would like to put that forward? Councillor Michelle, and second Councillor McCann. Are there any questions or comments?
I have a couple of questions.
Councillor McCann.
You made the mistake of saying how much money we spent on one, so that made me curious about the others. So, as have been applied and we've been reimbursed for any trees?
Yeah, we reimbursed $289.56 on trees and $20,000 on archaeology costs.
Great. And where is that money all coming from?
The money for the building permit is coming from just our regular operating budget. The archaeology grant is coming from funding provided by provincial government through the recovery funding. And the tree program is funded by general donations that were received shortly after the fire.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions, comments? Oh, all those in favor? Carried, thank you. So back to you, Diane. Number 8.2.1.
Thank you. And this is our monthly reporting on our Province of BC contribution agreement. So funding that was received from Emergency Management BC every month, we're required to provide a report of our expenditures. Council is required to pass a resolution approving that report and then approving its submission to the province. So for this, the report for the month of October of 2024, total costs that were incurred eligible under this program were $174,692. And so with council's approval, we will submit this to AMCR for reimbursement.
Thank you. And we have a recommended 2-part motion. Would be Councillor Lightfoot and a seconder.
So moved.
Thank you. Any questions or comments regarding this contribution agreement? Monthly reporting. It's pretty standard. We've seen it come every month for the last quite a while now. All those in favor? Carried. Thank you for that. Now we have the council meeting schedule and acting mayor designations. And is Lisa speaking to this?
Yes, Your Worship.
Thank
So,
you.
yes, under the community charter, we do need to have the acting mayor as well as the meeting schedule before the end of the year. So I proposed a few things there for you. So there is the schedule, but also just a few dates have changed. Like the September meeting would be changed because of the UBCM conference. November 11th would be Remembrance Day, so we'll hold it the next business day. And in December, a few meeting dates there have been adjusted due to the holidays. So we're just looking for approval.
Yes, thank you. We have a motion here to accept this as presented.
So move, Toss.
Thank you. Seconder.
Sure, I'll second.
Thank you, Councillor McCann. Any questions or comments? I'll just make the comment that I appreciate this and the work and the thought you've put into it to work around. I know this last year, a similar process happened, and then we did have to change a few meetings over the year, and I anticipate that may happen again. But as you know, we give plenty of notice to people, so thank you very much. All those in favor? And carried. All right, now we have item number 8.4, recovery manager, and we have recovery manager update. So I believe Don Wong is on call here.
Hi all.
Hi, Don.
Lisa, do you mind putting the PowerPoint on? Would that be okay?
Is that showing for everybody?
Yes.
Perfect.
Great. And this is just a quick update, just a follow-up from last summer, back when we met in the village, and just give everybody a quick update on what's been going on in terms of the infrastructure under particularly the feds. So next slide, please. Just a recap. When I started back in April 2023, and I apologize if this picture, the first picture is triggering to some folks. There was a state of local emergency on, remediation was required for all the properties in the village, and archaeology was the whole village. Now in November 2024, and I apologize for the picture below, just because I'm not a very good photographer. I'm not like Councillor Noni, so it's not very flattering. But there's no soul. Well, actually, I shouldn't say it like that. Sorry. There's no state of local emergency in the village anymore. There's remediation required only on one property in the village, and that property is under provincial jurisdiction, and archaeology is still going on. Next slide, please. So within my lane, in terms of we switched to recovery to rebuild, there's one thing is the backfill. So the only remaining backfill properties are zones 7, which are from 7th Ave to the Parish Hall, and the zones they call NA or non-applicable. Those are the few properties by on Old Trans Canada. There's approximately about 12 properties that were required fill. 3 are complete and the rest are in process. As we stated last summer, and the backfilling of these properties are being done on a case-by-case basis, mainly because they have a lot of just requirements and things that need to be done that can't be done just on a general kind of way. It's a very one-off, one by one. The other part of the recovery side are the structural deficiencies. These are walls. This is an ongoing thing. The example would be the rock walls that used to be at 3rd and Main. Just as many folks already know, anything over 4 feet requires engineered designs. They're considered structural walls, right? And that's what's being addressed right now. And these are being done on a case-by-case basis as well. I think a special kudos need to go out to the village engineer and public works because they've really been kind of stepping up and taking care of things. The second thing that we're working on are community buildings and infrastructure. Next slide, please, Lisa. Just a reminder for the community buildings and infrastructure, this is under the federal program, the Green Inclusive Community Buildings. The requirements for GICB are buildings have to be inclusive of community and accessible by the public, net zero, fire smart, accessible in this terms of physical accessibility, right? Like Rick Hansen Foundation certification. Each project building is a single structure. A complete environmental assessment has to be done. Species of risk assessment has to be done. And First Nations consultations have to be done from planning, building, and implementation, right? We've added post-build as well, because that's really more about the long-term sustainability of these projects. In addition, we've talked about within the village, there's no building higher than 2 stories within the village of Lytton. That's not really a GICB requirement. That's just the reality of what's available for fire suppression and whatnot, right? All the buildings that we're talking about infrastructure have to address the limited capacity of village staff. And that's mainly, there aren't a lot of folks to maintain things. So let's be honest, you're not going to get anything in terms of infrastructure that requires significant maintenance or equipment and repairs to operate. And the other part is who's going to operate the facilities. As we know, the village has limited capacity on that side as well, just in terms of staffing. And so this goes back to what I think they mentioned in the tourism thing, but it's really community-wide initiative, right? The last one is something that the council and we've discussed, is that the buildings they should be cost neutral and at best revenue positive. That's the idea of looking at the tax base within the village of Lytton. And we need to make sure that these buildings aren't just going to be empty shells, that they're going to be operated in the long term. Next slide, please, Lisa. So to talk, there's really 2 projects that we're going forward right now. There's the Building Back Better, really means building together. And the first one is the community hub that was mentioned in the tourism update, right? Just so folks are aware, the building is inclusive, access community and public. It has been designed and sealed off as net zero and approved by the federal government. It's a single structure. The federal government's approved the environmental assessment, the species of risk assessment. The initial consultations with First Nations has been expanded to all local government for the planning stage, and that's been accepted and approved. And the submission is completed and awaiting the final sign off from the federal government, right? This part is important because in the summer, we were hoping to get all the approvals and stuff done by the end of summer, beginning of fall. There has been a delay primarily because of the provincial election, right? And that's really that the federal minister, the current federal minister of infrastructure, does need to speak with his counterpart within the province. And that really was only decided about a week ago. So there has been a delay, and I apologize for that to the community as a whole. During though, while waiting for the federal approval, a project advisory committee has been struck, right? And it includes folks, representation from all local governments, essentially from in the area from Cooks Ferry down to Kanaka, includes the village, TNRD and whatnot. And really the goal of the PAC is to give everyone a seat at the table. This really came in part, this project advisory committees are pretty standard best practices for any large public infrastructure projects, like provincial or federal, or even some municipal. But part of this, I think the shout out should go over to John Sam for speaking up. And I know for the folks that know John Sam are going to say, I'm making it up because it's John. But really it was John that came out and said, hey, community kind of has a history of the same voices being the loudest voices to speak up. And perhaps it'd be best to hear from some voices that maybe are a little bit more quiet there, and they're probably just as important. And lo and behold, that's part of how the PAC is being moving forward. There's representation from the community as a whole. It's not just council or whatnot, but it's actually members that are representing different age groups, different backgrounds, and just the whole part of it, right? As I said, in terms of next steps, we're waiting for the agreement in principle. From there, we'll get the contribution agreement. The agreement in principle is important because for the village to move forward with RFPs, we need confirmation that the funding's in place. We'll get that with the IP. It's just typically a standard template letter. The contribution agreement is the actual contract and whatnot, right? But with the IP in place, we can start going forward. Once that, we'll launch RFPs for the community hub and continue on PAC consultation. For the other building being looked at under GICB at the moment is the fire rescue building. There's a lot of discussion going on. Functional programming is still happening in consultation with the local nations is in place and still moving forward. The last slide, please, Lisa. Oh yeah, sorry, Cook Day. Thank you.
Thank you, Dawn. Council, does anyone have any comments or questions regarding this report? I think it's fine. Councillor McCann.
Hi, Dawn. I had a couple of questions. I'm going to refer back to the July presentation that we had. And in the second slide there, it talked about upcoming actions and a status timeline. And so they talked about issuing the RFP for cultural advisor. And back then we had hoped that that would happen in July. It talks about establishing advisory committee in July, developing draft operating model in July. So where are we at with the draft operating model? Is that still waiting until everything is going ahead, I presume? Is that correct?
In part, yeah. There has been some background work done on all that stuff. A lot of things have been delayed waiting for this AIP to be put in place. Because really, we can't go to RFP for anything without that. And as folks probably know, under the PAC advisory, we put out questions about how to run things like the cultural advisor. And like I say, I apologize. Things are delayed by several months because of things like the election.
Okay, so the lots are consolidated though, right? That's been done?
Almost. They had to make a change. So it should be
Okay.
done probably by the next week.
All right. Community engagement, you basically addressed, I think, but community engagement looks like different things to different people. So in one sense, there's the thing that, what did you call it? The Indigenous engagement, right? But then there's this thing that we call community engagement. Now, what exactly, I think if I was a person paying taxes in Lytton, I would consider myself part of that. And we did say that we were going to do something about that in August. And I'm thinking that really hasn't happened. And maybe this is the closest we've got to community engagement, just talking about it right now in our meeting. Like, am I missing something here?
I think I don't think you're fully missing it. I will say we haven't gone to the place where we can show additional drawings and whatnot. But once again, there was a public PAC meeting held about a week ago, which I think it would be great to have other folks join in and be a part of, right, to express their comments. I was just speaking with somebody yesterday about it who wants to be a part of the PAC that is a taxpayer. I think, once again, if the definition, I think we got to be really clear about consultation versus engagement in the sense of what was required for the federal government in terms of which First Nations consultation, which was expanded to local government consultation, as well as what's engagement. Like part of the idea really, as we've discussed before, publicly, the idea of the PAC is that folks within each community that's represented will hopefully start bringing some of that information back to their communities, right? For example, just last week, we attended the rebuild committee for Lytton First Nation, right, as an invite, as just to ensure that it was well documented that they've been consulted and engaged. This goes on every week with the different communities on a one-on-one. But really, the idea is, like, I think somebody, I won't say who, but somebody in the community said best, Lytton's always been a service community, a service stop or service place for the community as a whole, right? And for everything to actually work, I think it really does involve the community required to speak up and voice their concerns. So yeah, I think ideally it's always been the plan to have more public communication, especially when we go to RFP with the actual final designs and drawings, right? From anybody coming in to do the build. But we do need the AIP and all that stuff in place before any RFP gets launched.
So then the process that was identified in the summertime talked about community engagement, the RFP for the design architect, preliminary design, community review, and revising the final design. So we were very hopeful that by September, all that would have happened. And now we're looking at basically those same steps, but later, correct? Once we get back this document from the government, then these things will then kick into place. Is that correct?
Exactly.
Okay. Thank you. I just wanted to have that clarified.
Thank you. Councillor Toss.
Thank you, Mayor O'Connor. Yeah, as you know, Don, I have a lot of reservations about this project, and to Councillor McCann's point about community input and consultation engagement, however you want to put it. It's great that the greater community is being invited into this process, but my concern is with the taxpayers that'll carry the burden of this project should it not be sustainable or financially sound. I voted for this when it came to us as a concept plan with the understanding that it wasn't a done deal. The way we seem to be proceeding is that it is a done deal. And I am quite concerned about that. I'm hoping for the record that our taxpayers are consulted sooner than later, like yesterday, and that we shouldn't be investing staff time in this should it not be a project that the community supports. The submission is completed and awaiting final approval gives me a concern. I did not vote for this project with that understanding. I voted for it as a concept plan, and with the understanding that there will be a lot of changes to it, but to date, I'm seeing one plan, that we can only build 2 stories. I think it's 10 meters. That's kind of irrelevant, but I just wanted to go on record as saying, as it sits right now, I am not in support of this project, and I hope that it comes to council again to see if it is something that we want to continue investing so much time and effort into when we don't have our sewer and water and village office and fire hall and public works building yet operating. So just like to go on record, just
Thanks.
my thoughts. Thank you.
Could I respond to Councillor Toss? Would that be okay?
Yes.
I don't know if I'm out of it. That's totally fair, what you're saying, Councillor Toss. I think the idea that there's never been the idea that this would be a burden to the village taxpayers as a whole. And that's the whole idea from day one of making sure it's cost neutral or even possibly revenue positive, right? And the idea of having the whole community involved is the community ownership, right? Because as we stated from day one, the belief is that the community needs to own this and take a positive kind of control, not just on the programming side, but really in terms of making sure it operates financially. Like realistically, as we've spoken about, well, just not publicly, but we've spoken before, this is not a complicated build like none of the builds within the village are. They're all quite simplistic builds, right? It's just making them work in the long term. That really is going to take the effort of the community whole. I think if the idea is really that this is just the village's project and just the village's program, it's going to struggle. If it's the idea really is this is for the community as a whole, I think it has great chance for success in the short term and in the long term. And to be clear, the projects that you've mentioned are staff related projects. There has not been as much staff time as you probably think in there because really it's consultant time. I'm not involved in any of those other projects directly.
Thank you, Don.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments or questions? Councillor Lightfoot.
I just want to add voice to the other council members that have spoken in so much that I do believe that the hub is a good concept. I do believe it needs to be viable. I do believe that it needs to have character. And I think that's one of the main concerns I've heard voiced when people look at the drawings that have been up on the walls here, is that it looks like something from a large urban center.
Industrial.
And it doesn't have the character that our community is used to. And that we have defended it by saying it's just a concept. So I am really imploring the people that be involved in this development to engage more consistently and more frequently with the citizens that will be using it on a day-to-day basis. And so I look forward to that opportunity because just to be quite blunt, the concept drawings that are on the wall are not anything anyone I've talked to wants to embrace.
Here, here.
They want, we're a humble community. We don't have to be fancy. We want to just have a gathering place where we all can enjoy each other and perhaps have something a little more green and natural than the cement landscape that we see before us. So I look forward to proceeding with this project. I really think it's valuable for our extended community. And I really can hardly wait to embrace a more happy concept that we all will enjoy in the future.
Organic.
All right, any other concepts? Comments?
Just one more to the capacity. Dawn, you spoke about the capacity of the, or somebody spoke to the capacity earlier about the village. And even if we did have a viable financial plan, and we still don't have the people in the town to run this sort of a project, we have dozens of job postings in this area. And so if it only required one person, we still can't find that one person. You know, we hear interior health, like LFN, Kanaka. The list is as long as my arm of people that are looking for employees, and interior health can't staff the hospitals they have. So I really wonder if we have the capacity for a project like this. That's my final comment.
Okay, we have a motion to accept Dawn's report.
So moved.
Thank you, Councillor Chaw, seconder. Sure. Thank you, Councillor McCann. All those in favor?
Nice.
Carried. Thank you, Dawn.
Thank you.
Okay, we move on to the fire rescue report, which we have Jim McDonald here. Yes, there's Jim. Great. You have a PowerPoint and it's up there.
I do have a PowerPoint, and someone else is going to have to push the button.
We have Lisa, I think, on the other end.
Thanks,
doing that.
Lisa.
Yes.
So, we talked about this a few months back about our new temporary fire hall. I think it's not temporary anymore. We're there. And very close to the village office. There's a photograph of it there. Great signage, and we have our three pieces of apparatus, 2 engines. Those are fire trucks that can produce water at the scene, and then we have a rescue vehicle, and that would go out to accidents on the highway and that kind of thing. All of the equipment that we own is now locked up, where in the past it was just sitting out in a parking lot. So we're pretty pleased about that. Most of the fire training is held at this site as well. We've newly acquired a donated shipping container, and in that shipping container, we've got fires. So there'll be doors, windows, furniture, carpets going up in flames, and our volunteers will be able to practice their skills on that. And of course, the building is steel, so we can burn up everything inside, start all over again. And to that point, I want to let people know that there have been donations of doors, windows, and building materials that allow us to keep rebuilding that. And that comes from as far away as Chilliwack, with those donators happy to keep driving this stuff up.
Okay.
So there we go. And this is just a kind of brief overlook. There's a little bit of a graph after this. Our total number of calls as of the beginning of November was 113. Typically, we see about 100 calls. So we're kind of right on track. And as you might imagine, medical calls is our main kind of response, and motor vehicle incidents are after that. Next slide, please. Here's this bad graph. I apologize. Medical calls, which you see on the bottom of the graph, are 68 of them as of November. And medical calls are kind of all over the map. You call 911, you ask for someone to show up at your house, and typically ambulance and fire both show up. So that's what drives all the major call volume. The next one up is motor vehicle incidents. And if I could actually see the bottom of the graph, that would be, 22 or so. Thank you. And those would be incidents mainly on the highway. And knowing that this isn't just within the boundaries of Lytton. So our motor vehicle incidents go very far south and quite far north on the highway. And we receive compensation for responding to those.
Landscape.
Yep, landscape, and that would be just fires around the house, grass fires, that kind of thing would be our next thing. Motor vehicle fires after that, and not very many of them, but of course, motor vehicle incidents often result in that. And then we go to public service. So someone calls, they need some help. Doesn't really fit in any category. Our volunteers show up. Rescue calls, that's mainly kind of over the embankment kind of stuff where a motor vehicle incident has ended up with someone going off the highway. And then our teams end up sliding down a rope somehow to assist them. Lines down, I think that's the next one.
Yeah.
Yep, lines down, that would just be hydro lines. So again, typically motor vehicle incident, someone drives into a power pole, brings the lines down on top of them. And then fire alarms, very few, just one fire alarm call. So those commercial structures that we still have in place, we have an automatic fire alarm and we show up automatically. To those, and then fire burning complaints. Someone's having a fire in the backyard, maybe making too much smoke, wrong time of year. And of course, that brings a call to service. So that's really what we've seen in the way of calls. So again, I think we need to focus on the first aid or medical assistant calls. And we should be therefore concentrating training around that. Yeah. Because of course we aren't a group of volunteers that are first aid specialists, so we need to bring their skill levels up. Okay, so in training, and since this council has declared that our fire service is an exterior fire service, that means we don't go running into a building at any chance that we have. We would rather stand back and see if we can do something from the outside that would put our volunteers at less risk, and it also therefore drives a lower level of training. When you go into buildings, the level of training is actually quite extensive. So we've eliminated that a little bit by declaring ourselves exterior. That being said, we have some specialists in our volunteer ranks who could go in. So the officer in charge would look at who he's got and say, okay, let's go in that with these people that are trained. Some of our training nights have nothing to do with fires. We don't put any water on anything. We don't grab a fire hydrant, but instead we go into homes and commercial buildings and decide what we would do in the event that we got called out. So it's important to know that not everyone in the fire department has been in every structure, so they don't know about it. So we go into these structures in advance, make a plan, and that plan is captured in a paper format. You show up at a particular address, you open the book, and it says fire hydrant is over there. These are the problems that you need to concern yourself with. We have about 15 dedicated volunteers. I'm going to leave the 15 number kind of up there because these holidays, people have a life. So I think that's important to understand that for them to dedicate a couple hours a week ongoing year round, it's a bit of a struggle. And especially considering our volunteers are young. So young families, young friends, active lives. This ongoing training, and I'm part of that currently. Sometimes I'll get all 15 out, sometimes I'll get 3. So just gonna put that out there. It's quite a commitment for these volunteers. Aside from them feeling good about what they're doing in the community, I think we need to elevate them a little bit, and any chance we have to thank them for their service. Oh, you're on the next slide. There we go. On a past council meeting, we were reminded that the local authorities are responsible for doing mandatory public building inspections. We embrace that, and in the first week of November, we did these inspections of all the public buildings, and those formal reports are now in, and they've been made the owners and operators of those buildings now have those in hand. I will personally follow up with them on the recommendations and what they can do next steps. And you can see the buildings were the Cumsing School, the Anglican Church, the parish hall that we sit in. By the way, top notch. We don't have to concern ourselves here at the parish hall. We looked at the Pines Motel, the work camp at the airport, the village office, the Chinese museum. By and large, all did very well. That being said, there's a few where you have to go back and talk about what our next steps might be to make things just a little bit better. Some of our volunteers were able to attend during these inspections, and I think that's important to note as we build capacity. So currently, the inspections were done by an outside contractor. I'm going to call them a rock star, but in order for us to build that capacity, we need to have our people alongside that rock star, so that down the road we have a little more strength of our own. Wow, she's so fast at these. We've developed some standard operational guidelines. Everything that we do in the fire service needs a bit of a structure, so that if Captain so-and-so shows up or another captain show up, they have the same kind of response. So operational guidelines is how we look after that. I believe I developed 9 or 10 to start with. I just dumped another 9 or 10 on them as we move forward on this. We are still working on our MTSAs, or municipal type service agreements, with our regional partners, where we receive a fee for being able to respond to their calls outside of our village boundaries. I developed a 5-year budget for the fire department, trying to kind of spread the load. Fire departments, this is a big problem Canada-wide. All of a sudden you need 5 fire engines at 880,000 each. Oh my goodness, you can't do that in a year. So we've tried to spread now that load over a 5-year period. I would say that our current challenges with fire rescue is the absence of a declared leader or a fire chief. We currently have 2 captains who kind of fill the role, but they're not really in charge. So we need to look at that to develop the fire chief that you would feel comfortable being your choice to lead the department. Again, we go back to a capacity. Emergency program, well, that's me. Okay, so I delivered a draft to you a couple months back, maybe. Final product is actually right on the edge of being delivered here. We will test that final product with staff with an emergency tabletop exercise. So I'll have something bad occur, a bad thing perhaps, and then we'll read through the plan and decide if we can make the next steps to reduce that impact. And I think that mock emergency would then lead me to change the plan if we have to respond to that. So the plan isn't made for a city somewhere else. The plan is made for what we've got here and what we can put in place here. So the plan is all hazards. I keep using the zombie apocalypse, which I've never planned for, but we could respond to something like that. But actually what we're focusing on is things that could occur here in Lytton: severe weather, flooding, wildfire interface, landslides. Yeah, and that's become more of an issue after the fires or earthquakes, hazardous material spills. We got the highway going through town, a couple train tracks with dangerous goods being transported through town every day. Pandemic events, which we've seen recently, long-term power outages, which I've seen in communities like this throughout the province, where it took quite a long time to get power rerouted back again, and the supply of drinking water to the village, having that disrupted is something that we have to look at, and what we're going to do in the event of. And is there another slide? Thanks. And training around this then. So we've had quite a few staff members go to training, to the point where we've actually put a "we're out of the office" sign up. So we've had everybody show up at the training. I apologize to the public that may have shown up during that, but I think this is extremely important that we get our staff trained up, because again, the capacity is small. So we got to get as many people trained up as we can. And I just want to recognize that a couple council members have kept throwing themselves into that as well. And that's not typical, by the way. Council normally doesn't go to emergency management training. So thank you.
This isn't a normal council.
Okay, so there's still 4 more trainings that are scheduled. There's one on December the 3rd, one on the 10th, and then we've got a couple early spring. And then I've kind of thrown a wild card in there so we can add one more, and that'll be early January, I think. I'll throw that in because it seems like everyone's turning into a pumpkin, or there's sugar plums dancing in their heads, so we can't quite commit to anything after the middle of December. I must say that most of our training has also included our partners. So the importance of that, again, we go back to capacity. We can't do it alone. So by having our regional partners involved in the same training, we know we've all got the same training. We understand who knows what, and we can pull on them in the event of. There is going to be a regional partnership meeting in December. I think it's the 16th, and that's more about how we talk to each other, how we communicate, how we let somebody know that something is going on in our community. Okay, if there's another slide, next slide. Okay, so I just got a couple quotes. I'm kind of a quote guy. I got like 1,000 of them on my laptop. And I just want to point out that by failing to prepare, we're preparing to fail. And Benjamin Franklin, a little known guy in the US, said that. And another one, it wasn't raining when Noah built that ark. So it's time for us to get on it, I think. And again, I appreciate council being involved in this. Aside from just signing off on stuff, it's nice to see you there. Yeah.
Thank you, Jill.
Sure.
Very thorough report. Much appreciated. Council, are there any questions?
Over to the tabletop.
Yes,
And
Councillor Toss.
Yeah, I had a question about, do you have any ideas on how to incentivize people to attend or to get a fire chief?
so I've been shaking the trees, talking to retired guys,
Yeah,
trying to see if there's anybody in the area. Tough.
right.
So I would think more we go to building someone who's already here. So looking at the young peers that we have and building them up through training, through mentoring. I've talked with the Surrey Fire Department, and Chilliwack Fire Department. They're both willing to have ride-alongs, which would mean we take whoever our choice might be or our choices, put them on a fire engine at a busy place. If we put them, for instance, in Surrey and Hall 2, which is in Hawley, they would on a weekend go to 70 calls,
Yeah.
2 days.
Wow.
Wow.
So they could learn a little bit. I worked there for 7 years, by the way. I think that's how we're gonna tackle this, as opposed to trying to find some washed up recycled fire guy, like me. Yeah.
Oh, that's great. Thank you.
Yeah.
Did you have another?
Yeah, I do. An unrelated question. Well, related to this. Do you have stats on how many calls were within the village itself and how many were outside the village approximately, if not?
Yeah, I don't have them with me. We going back through our fire dispatch Kamloops, we have actual addresses to those calls.
Okay,
It's quite a bit more detailed than just that slide.
sure.
Yeah.
Good.
Thanks.
Yes.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? We'd like a motion, please, to receive this report for information.
So moved.
Councillor Lightfoot, seconder.
Seconded.
Toss, thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Carried. Thanks again, Jim.
Thanks, Jim.
All right, we'll move on to item number 9, which is bylaws, and we have 4 bylaws here coming to us this evening for adoption. First one being the Village of Lytton Reserve bylaw, repeal bylaw number 762, 2024. Can I please have a motion to adopt this bylaw? Councillor Lightfoot, seconder. McCann.
Yeah.
And are there any comments or questions regarding this? And again, we've seen it come to us multiple times.
Yep.
All those in favor?
Aye.
And carried. The second bylaw is the Village of Recovery Operations Reserve Fund bylaw. Who would like to put that motion forward?
Also,
Thank you, Councillor McCann, seconder. Councillor Toss. Again, any comments or questions? All those in favor? Carried. The third bylaw before us this evening is the Village of Lytton Insurance Proceeds Reserve Fund bylaw. Recommended motion here.
So move toss.
Thank you, seconder.
Second.
Thank you. Again, comments or questions? All those in favor? Carried. And the fourth is the Village of Lytton Donations Reserve Fund bylaw. Different one than 765. Councillor Lightfoot, seconder. Sure. Thank you, Councillor McCann. Again, any comments? All those in favor? And carried. All right. We're on to item number 10, which is correspondence. And I believe we have 2 pieces this evening. The first is a letter from the Ministry of Child and Family Development proclaiming November as Adoption and Permanency Awareness Month. We have a recommended motion to receive this and to direct staff to share the resources and support services on our media channels and newsletters and such. Would anyone like to put that forward? Councillor Lightfoot, seconder. Councillor Toss, any comments or questions regarding that? Councillor Lightfoot.
Having been adopted and having adopted, I think it's a valuable resource to have on our page for people that consider that.
Thank you for sharing that. Councillor McCann.
I thought that was intriguing that there's two of us on this council that are adopted children. So kind of came our way.
Connection there, yeah, for
I have a
sure.
connection to that.
Yeah. Any other comments or questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Carried. Okay, so we move on to 10.1.2, which is the hydro regreening grant that came forward to us, and the motion is to receive that letter again and to direct staff to apply for the grant.
So move to us.
Thank you, Councillor Toss. The Secretary, Councillor Lightfoot. Any comments or questions regarding this?
Just delighted to see us with trees on the horizon and tree planting. That's fantastic.
All those in favor?
Aye.
That carried. Perfect. All right, we move right on to item number 12, which is verbal reports. And for a change, I have it in front of me. Searching for it. So I'll begin with my report. So it's been 3 weeks since the last council meeting. We've had quite a long break between meetings. Right after that meeting 3 weeks ago, I had Kamloops for 2 days of TNRD budget workshops, starting that process already. Remembrance Day was on that same Friday, and no, I'm sorry, it was on a Monday. And at coffee here in the hall, I was pleased to join in with the 2 minutes of silence for all the thinking of all the veterans. I think it was appreciated by everyone who attended coffee that day, and I want to thank Councillor McCann for suggesting that it be done. We know the Legion is well on its way to being built and look forward to having a service there next year. On November 12th, I traveled to Vancouver for the week. As I mentioned before, I think in some of my reports, I was elected small town representative on the UBCM board. So I spent 3 or 4 days down there. The days were jam-packed with training, committee meetings, board meetings. It was full. I attended the ambulance service barbecue last Tuesday to hear about their recruitment strategies, and also made some connections with the EPCH. I got
Yeah, whatever they call it.
yes. Which was worthwhile. I also attended the Fire Smarts fall info session. It was, it's always great to see such, or to hear the good work that committee is doing. I'm often asked by other mayors in the region if Lytton has a Fire Smart committee. And when I tell them it's a joint committee, that it's actually a regional committee with First Nations and the TNRD and the village, like they're quite surprised and quite impressed by that. So on Thursday last week, I did attend another TNRD meeting where it was brought out of closed meeting and announced our purchase of the old village office, a property here in town from the TNRD. And I view that as another positive step forward, rebuild of our town. One other piece I'd like to share. As you know, Council, that I am the chair of the PAC committee that Don referred to in his report. So PAC is the project advisory committee for the hub. And so we have had, just an update for you, we've had one meeting where it wasn't a formal meeting, it was a dinner that we got together because we have representatives from all 5 bands, as well as the TNRD. And of course, the village councillor McCann's on that as well, where we got together and just met each other and did some initial explaining and sharing about what the whole concept is and looking at our application. We've had one other Zoom meeting since that. I think was that last week or the week before?
Last week.
Gosh, I can't remember. And we didn't have a lot of updates because we are, as Dawn mentioned, we're still waiting for that principle or agreement in principle from the federal government. But what we've decided to focus on is to take a look at and start thinking about the cultural advisor, which is a piece of the application. And we need to do in the village or for this project. I also think it's really important that we understand, and I think we do, that we have put in the application for the funding for this project. And really that's where we're at right now. We haven't, other than the concept plans, and I know some don't like that term, but that's as far as we've really gone with this at this point in time. So we're waiting for that agreement in principle, and then take the next steps after that. Okay, so that's it for my report, and we will move on to Councillor Toss.
Thank you, Mayor O'Connor. I do not have a lot to report. I did attend a Chamber of Commerce meeting for the Village of Lytton, which is always great. We have the president here in attendance. It's great. I get to hear a little bit about what LFN's doing through Jason Robertson, and was happy to hear the third phase of the work camp is finished, serving 50 people. And there's a temporary RV park set up below GWSEP. These are LFN ECDEV initiatives. And that United Rentals is moving forward with a tool cache at the drive-in by Timbermart. So all of those are exciting developments. I'm excited to see all the changes in the village every time I leave and come back for a week, and all the new buildings. So that's really encouraging. I encourage community members to get involved with the PAC and with the planning for the hub if they support it, and if not, to let their feelings be known. It'd be great to have some feedback from our taxpayers. And those are my comments.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor McCann.
I attended a number of events. Thank you, Mayor O'Connor. I continue to go to the Spitland Park planning meetings. There continues to be issues. I think I probably am stepping out of line, but to me, it feels like the grocery store people are probably having the same issues the park people are having. That there's just, you think you're good, you think you're ready to go, and then you realize, no, you're not ready to go yet. There's this thing that's got to be dealt with. And so you figure out how you're going to deal with that thing. And then you go, okay, now we're good to go. And then you get going and you go, no, guess what? There was this other thing you never really thought about yet. So it's quite the process. I admire the patience of the landscape architect who's in charge of this, who keeps coming back every week and saying, well, this is the revised plan based on the last circumstance that we had to deal with. So it sounds like that just continues to go on, and the task force continues to support whatever and however, like we applied for a grant and we'll look for ways to find more money, because that's the bottom line, is there's just not enough money to do things the way you want to get it done. Like the way these ladies described the park tonight. Yeah, that was how we were hoping it would look, but we're a ways from there now. It's like the Cadillac versus the Datsun, right? So anyway, we continue to carry on and keep attempting to make things happen there. On the 7th of November, I went to the performance of the Rabbit and Coyote, help the people destroy the monsters at Stein Valley School, and that was wonderful to be able to take part in that and to see the community together, and to see Kevin Lauren again and back in town. Give him a little hug and say hi. On November the 8th, I went to the Remembrance Day ceremony at SVNS. So I went to Stein Valley, and Mayor O'Connor went to the other schools. So we were the village at each school for their little ceremony that they had for Remembrance Day. And I also went to the powwow and took part in the grand entry. Followed the mayor around. I was her little sidekick. You did that last year. Yeah, that's right. You take turns. And the 15th, I went to the PAC meeting with the mayor for the community hub. The 20th was the Fire Smart committee meeting. So we had a committee meeting earlier in the day, and then in the evening was the actual public info session at Stein Valley School. And then on the 22nd again was another park meeting. So those things are ongoing. I just want to mention that Tanya Collins gave a little summary of the Fire Smart thing, where she kind of sent it out to all the people that were engaged in that event. And I'm going to just quote her here because I thought she kind of said it all right there. She said, "Thank you to everyone in the group who put together slide decks, videos, and provided the awesome session presentations. These were all local people presenting. The information in each and every presentation was extremely informative and well presented. I received several very positive comments from community members echoing these accolades. Great job. There were so many great questions from the community, and your thoughtful responses to every question was excellent. Also, big thanks to Raven for stick handling the door prizes, Snowy for emceeing, Byron for the yummies, Jackie for running around getting people to sign in and providing door prizes, Roy for providing a gift certificate from the community store, Tad for being a tech wizzy, and Shelley for providing an absolutely fabulous dinner to feed everyone in attendance, and the whole group for pitching in to set up and tear down. So it was, as always, it was a good deal, wasn't it? Yeah, Jim was there. We saw the same slideshow. So it was a well-attended event, and I'm always happy to be a part of it. And so that's my report.
Great, thank you. Councillor Michelle.
Nothing to report.
Councillor Lightfoot.
Shortly after the last meeting, so on the 7th, I went to the Stein Valley School and saw the Savage Society's performance. And it was really quite a moving performance. I enjoyed it a lot and talked to Kevin after. On the 8th, I did a Fire Smart Zoom meeting. And on the 9th, I went to the powwow. I guess I missed the mayor and Councillor McCann. They must have been there the next day, perhaps. And I have to congratulate the organizers. I know these events are difficult to find money for sometimes, and it's the same few people that work so hard to make it happen, but it was a very successful event. I think they should be congratulated. Other than that, I was home most of the time, preparing for winter and doing some personal things, but was able to share coffee yesterday with a number of citizens, which was nice treat to get out. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so that brings us to closing this meeting. So thank you everyone for attending. We would like a motion now to move into closed meeting. Okay, thank you. And seconder?
I'll second.
Thank you, Councillor Michelle. And all those in favor?
Aye.
Carried. So as I just mentioned, thank you everyone for attending, and I'll turn it back over to CO Storchenko.
Thank you, Mayor O'Connor. So that concludes the public portion of the regular council meeting of November 26, 2024. We ask that the public and staff please remove yourself from the meeting as we go into closed. Thank you for attending today's meeting and have a wonderful night. I invite council to take a short recess while I reset the meeting.